everyone. Welcome back to We Persist. My name is Jada and I work here at the Women and Gender Center.
My name is Kailey and I also work at the Hattie Redmond Women and Gender Center.
Thanks for adding Hattie Redmond in that.
Yeah, gotta give Hattie Redmond the name, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just Kailey and I today, so you're rocking with the duo.
Yep.
And this is actually the first episode of season 5. So
yes,
thanks
exciting.
For tuning in. Yeah. And just, we're kind of getting right into it, and it's the start of the year, and, you know, we just wanted to talk about us and, you know,
just
our
do
experiences.
A little check-in.
Yeah, a little check-in. So how are classes going for you?
For me, I was feeling really confident in the beginning, but that kind of fell off a little last week. It was just like a lot of things happened, and I started my period, and I was like, it was just not a great week, And then I'm skipping some classes, so I was like, it kind of started a pattern, and I'm trying to get back in the groove, you know, catch up on notes and homework. So far, I was feeling really good because also the classes I was taking was more focused on my major and actually what I want to do in my career-wise. So I was I really liked that. And I was supposed to go to class today, but then they canceled the class. So I'm like, okay, well that continue the streak. So hopefully I'll be able to go to all my classes tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you're Kylie's professors, you did not hear this.
Yeah.
For legal reasons. But
I mean, it's fine. It's a college.
Yeah.
It's, okay.
It's
not like high school,
I know, for real. And you're a third year, right?
I am a third year. Yeah. Looking to be a fifth year. 5 years at OSU.
You see, I feel like there is, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant, but I feel like there is a glorified pathway to college in terms of
100%.
You have to go to university and you have to graduate in 4 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to be part of Greek life and go to all these parties and go to football games. There's just a very glorified, narrow pathway for those types of things.
It's just like a societal timeline.
Yeah.
You go to high school, you go straight to college. After college, you either get your master's and PhD, and then you start working, and then you work, and then you get a house, and then you get a family, and then you keep working until you die and retire. That's literally the pattern.
Yes, we need to break that pattern.
It's so hard though, because our
really
society is just shaped in it, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that you saying that you're a fifth year, I almost feel like there's some stigma attached to that. They're
100%.
You're a fifth year, you're supposed to graduate in 4 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's personal reasons why you might have taken a fifth year.
Exactly.
And that shouldn't be stigmatized,
100%.
especially. So.
I feel like, especially with, I don't know if it was this university, but there's more talks about doing full time is 12 credits rather than usually the normalized 15 credits and stuff, and you know, normalizing more the fifth, taking 5 years to get your education rather than 4 years, because I feel like there's definitely more of a pattern now, especially after COVID, that people aren't graduating in 4 years. And so, I think there's definitely a huge stigma. And I also feel that too, when I have to admit that I'm even using the word admit, I'm a fifth year. It's I always imagine graduating 4 years and just following the same patterns, you know? I wish someone told me take a gap year before you go to college. You know, take some classes at community college and just kind of organize yourself and get ready to go to college, rather than having to just jump right into it and you know.
Yeah. I mean, that is also a thing. I feel like that's becoming slowly more common, is to take a gap year before college, which honestly, I think sometimes I think back and that's what I should have done. I mean, there's some different elements to it because I was also a class of 2020 grad. So I almost feel like my whole year being online would have been much better spent if I either took a gap year and didn't do school at all, or if I went to PCC instead and saved a boatload of money instead. So, But overall, classes are going good.
Yeah, classes are going good, But I also agree that, because my senior year was a COVID year too, that I was so excited to go to college and just be more social, because I was a very social person. I'm more of an introvert now, but I think I was just I was just holed up at home. I'm ready to go out. I'm ready to go party, make some friends, find community. And I think that's why I also feel I really rushed into things my first year and kind of wanted to experience everything. And now I just feel I'm burnt out from social experiences.
Yeah. And you bring something up too about wanting to be a young person and going to college and finding your community.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good transition to.
Oh, yeah.
Not to make it unsubtle, but just like our experiences as being women of color, particularly like with Asian identities and how that might look different in college. Because, you know, I think I've been slowly learning stuff about my own identity, and I really don't think that changes that much. Like, part of growing up and adulting is just learning more about yourself, and I've enjoyed the process along the way, but it's definitely a lot to think about and a lot to contain. So coming here, and it's kind of funny because going to OSU, we are a predominantly white institution, PWI, and I didn't even know that because compared to my hometown, here, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much more diverse, and like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy to think about. So I don't know if you had a similar experience, because I don't know what, like, high school you went to. So I don't know if it was, like, you downgraded or you upgraded like me, basically.
Yeah. I think for me, because, like, I feel like my school was more diverse than some of the other schools in our area. And there were, like, a lot of, like, Asian people at my school, and we have, like, I fell into the whole, like, Key Club thing, if you know,
I feel like you told me about this before.
I fell into the whole, like, Key Club, like, Asian stereotype, and was Key Club president my senior year. So, yeah, I definitely feel like I grew up with a very big, like, Asian bubble with just, like, my family, my friends and stuff. And so when I came here to OSU, I kind of sought after that feeling of, like, the comfort of being in, like, an Asian bubble. But then being here, like, being exposed to more diversity, I feel like, and different type of, like, racist ethnicity, their perspective on, like, the U.S. life and, like, all that stuff, it really kind of, like, opened my eyes and, like, kind of just, like, popped my bubble. And I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I want to, like, expand more and, you know, like, meet different people, different backgrounds, rather than just, like, kind of being in that same place, you know?
Yeah, which is kind of contrary to, like, my experience in high school, where I was like one of the only minorities in the school, and my friend group was like one of the only diverse friend groups. So it was just interesting transitioning to here and like finding, like, not even finding, but like seeing more people. I was like, oh wow, like I'm really not the only one, like physically, that looks like an outcast, which sounds terrible, but I don't know. There's just a lot of stress when you're like a young adult coming to college, especially like the minority experience. And you mentioned like the Key Club stereotype. I think just like there's just so much like Asian stereotypes that it's so hard to not be a victim of stereotype threat. Where it's like, I don't know, I have to deliver constantly, and I have 100%. To so there's just all those elements that make it so hard.
I think like adding on to like the stereotypes, I feel like we also fall into like those like Asians who are like first generation Asians too. Like I feel like we also have like such like similar experiences that we also tend to get roped into a lot of the same stereotypes too, because we have similar experiences, and that's how we act and treat others because of those experiences. And I feel like there's a lot of like different patterns there. I feel like that not help support stereotypes, but like definitely like there is a definite stereotype. I feel like that follows like that consistency.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we were talking about this the other day, but the model minority myth. Like I just started learning about.
No, me too. Like
model minority in general.
I didn't learn about it until I came to OSU.
And I watch a lot of. Do you know the YouTube channel Jubilee?
Yeah,
I've been watching a lot of that, and I watch that like when I get ready for bed and things like that, but it's really a good way for me to learn, because I genuinely, like, growing up in such a sheltered town, like, I feel like I'm learning a lot about myself in college, which I feel like is a theme just of adulthood, but
I think so too.
More especially now that I'm, like, going from such a sheltered bubble to, like, to Corvallis, which seems more diverse to me. So learning more about these, and my major also has like some embedded elements into it, but learning about like just the Asian experience is just crazy.
Yeah, we were in our bubbles in like different ways, which I feel like is kind of interesting, because we definitely had bubbles before coming here. And I think it's interesting when you speak towards like you being so like intertwined into like an Asian community, an Asian bubble, that you actually wanted to expand. Because in some ways I almost feel like I wish I was more in tune with my Asian identity, because
you know, I keep saying this, but growing up in a small town, pretty sheltered, not very diverse, like I feel like white folks were all who I was surrounded with, which isn't terrible, but I feel like I almost was like assimilating in ways that I didn't want to be. 100%. And like I wanted to.
But that's the only thing you knew.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I wanted to embrace who I was, but I didn't know how to do that because I didn't have the resources, the opportunities, like just the people around me physically. Like I didn't have that sort of opportunity to learn more about myself. Yeah. So in a way, it's like opposite of what you feel like. You wanted to stem away from it, but I like wanted to learn more about it. But I think that's unique and what makes us like very unique.
I remember in one of our previous conversations too that you felt like you were getting more into like your Asian identity and stuff like recently. Like, is there any like certain experiences that you've had that like kind of like feel like you're being more connected to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think weirdly enough, even though like the Women and Gender Center isn't attached to an ethnicity, it's not like, I don't know, some of the cultural centers do have like an ethnicity or a race attached to it, but just being a part of this center has really gotten me exposed just to different people, which I think has inspired me to learn more about myself. And, you know, I've been consuming different medias like the Jubilee thing, and I think that there's also been other ways, like, this sounds so stupid when I say it out loud, but like I didn't like boba before. But this center has changed me.
I've heard this story.
I am a boba addict now, but only for one like flavor.
Did you know a new place opened up at Monroe?
I think I saw that. Yeah. It's like boba and coffee or something like that.
I don't know if I should say their name on here.
Well, we can talk about it later. Maybe we should do a little like field trip over there.
Yeah, I did go today. Open? I went today because I was walking home from class on Monroe, and I was like, I texted my roommates. I was like, guys, do I go in right now? And they're like, do it. And so I went in. I got a drink.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I should rate it here, but we can definitely talk about that later.
No, I want to. We should go. We should go. Yeah. That's another thing. Like, I think I felt guilty a lot of times for liking the things I do in terms of like what Asian things there are. Like, I don't know. I can't think of an example, but I'm trying to detach from that guilt of like liking what comes along with my identity, but also just learning more about it. And I don't even know if those words made sense, but
no, I get it. There's definitely like I feel like a lot of stigmatization too to like towards Asian food in America, especially with having such strong flavors and smells and things like that, like with fish sauce and just like very like I don't want to say pungent, but very like, you know, intense flavors. And so I think there's always just a stigma around Asian food, not even just like from you liking it. I think it's just like a whole like, culture thing that a lot of stigmatization around it.
Yeah, which is honestly kind of interesting because for as much as like I used to feel guilt about the things that I liked in terms of like the Asian experience and Asian things, like I almost feel like in a way Asian things are being like not fetishized, but like they're like people are taking and running with it, like
I can see that,
making it popular, I guess.
I feel like there's definitely like a rise in popularity in Asian culture and in Asian cuisines and food, snacks, like the whole thing. I think it also kind of like followed the realm of like K-pop as well.
Yes,
I feel like that really like because I feel like K-pop really got like really popular here in America, and I think because of like that interest in Korean culture, there's like a lot more expansion on like the different cultures and just not like Asian Eastern cultures, whereas like Korea, Japan, like I feel like I mean that is also like a lot of like the center. Like people think of Asia, they think of like China, Korea, Japan. They don't think about like a lot of the Southeastern countries. They don't think about like, you know, like all that stuff. And so it's like I think there's a definitely like more shift towards it. And it is kind of feeling a little iffy to me too about like, you know, fetishization and like, you know, kind of like the crazy fans, that type of stuff. It's like, it's getting a little iffy, but we're not navigating it right now. It's just like happening.
I know, And I don't know, it just makes me think a lot about, I mean, pop culture is just a weird phenomenon when I think about it, but it makes me kind of mourn for my past self in a way, because if I were to take food for an example, like growing up, little me, like there wasn't as much like diversity with food, and my mom was very much like the almond mom who only shopped organic, food coloring, that type of stuff. But I also grew up like, because I was actually adopted, so I have my adopted mother is Asian and my father is white, so I was still able to like have some of that culture. So I still grew up like in elementary school, like going to lunch or getting lunch. What am I saying? Like packing a cold lunch. Yes, that's what I meant. And you know, sometimes my mom would pack pot stickers and things like that. And a lot of the kids would be like, ew, that looks gross, or like, ew, that smells weird. Which, like, in hindsight is kind of like funny, but also I am kind of mourning for my past self, because like sometimes I just wouldn't eat, or I would throw it away, and things like that. But now it's like trendy to be like culturally diverse with food and like things like that. So I guess it's a little annoying to me, but also I am mourning a little bit for my past self.
Yeah, I get like the annoying part of like, you guys just dissed our culture like so much, and like now like, oh my god, you love it. Like it's like kind of hard to like, you know, like feel like understand like the shift, you know, when you were always like, oh, like that smells weird in your food, like I don't like, why are you eating that, like that looks gross or whatever, like, you know, like all of that stuff, and like kind of like having that switch on you, it feels really, that's why I'm like, it feels like a little iffy, like it feels weird to me, you know, like having like your culture praised when it was always like put down. But yeah, I think there's also like a lot of eggshells around it too, with like cultural appropriation and like a lot of the rise on that as well. So, but I think like there's definitely like a respectful way to do it. Like you can definitely appreciate people's cuisines and stuff, but like do it the right way, you know, like
100%. Yeah. And just like, I don't know. No. I've also thought about like the walking on eggshells part, because it's like, at what point does it seem like you're not appreciating it for what it is, or like assimilation, like things like that? At what point does it become okay to like learn about it and respect it, versus like when it trickles into being like cultural appropriation and like just full on like taking it and leaving it? I don't know.
This made me think about there's like this little like surfacing, I don't remember what the brand was called, I won't say the brand name either, but this couple in Portland, and they're not Asian, they started like a boba company called,
interesting.
It was like their like whole brand thing was like better boba and like healthier boba.
Oh,
and
my
it's like
gosh.
boba is literally just tapioca and brown sugar coated in brown sugar. I'm like, how do you make that healthier, I guess? And then they made like a pumpkin spice like latte drink that they sell, like the powdered like mix, you know, for that. And I'm just like, okay, like
it's
that
doesn't
that don't feel right. Like
it's light brown sugar. It's not dark brown sugar, so it's healthier.
Yeah, no sugar, sugar free. You know, we use stevia.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it was just like a recent like pop culture news type of thing.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, that just reminds me of how much like healthism and dieting and that like nutrition culture is like a whole another topic that we could probably spend one episode on. But like,
100%, especially with our book too.
I know. Yeah. At the center, we're reading a book right now, and it's about, what would you say? Like nurturing your body and realizing the systems that work against how you view your body.
Yeah, and basically how they kind of framed your body and like why you think about your body that way, and how it's like negatively impacted you in that way, and like how do we like heal from that? It's a real like healing, I feel like, book.
For sure. And I remember in our reflections the other day us talking about Asian beauty standards, which actually like fits right in with this episode. But I don't know, it's weird, because the way that I look, I feel like, let me back up. In Asian culture, I feel like we try to like categorize people a lot. Like there's a lot of different types of ethnicities in Asian culture, but it's like from an elder, you'd always get like, are you Chinese? Are you Vietnamese?
Yeah, not even just from elders, it's like everyone in America. Like,
that's true.
Like, where are you from? No, like, where are you really from?
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of that too. It's like,
100%, yeah.
I think because Asia is also like so big too. And in America, we just clump everyone, like all Asians together. And so we always like, but we're not all the same Asians. We're so like culturally, like
different,
so different,
unique.
You know? Yeah. And so I think like that's also why there's like such a big like hold on like what ethnicity are you and categorizing what ethnicity are you.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, I grew up, especially, like, being adopted. I recently took a ancestry test, and by recently it was like 3 years ago, like 2020, which is like kind of recent if you think about it. Like, I went 20 years not really knowing, and I don't know, like.
Did you have that curiosity?
I did, but like at the same time, I don't know if like that was something that was really suppressed of my identity, being around like white people all the time. And I don't mean to demonize that at all, like demonize white people.
It's just what
in
you're
general.
exposed to, you know?
But yeah, exactly.
It's
like I don't think I had the desire to learn about that because it's not something I really actively thought about. Like I thought that I was different than people because I looked different and like my culture was different. But at the same time, when it comes to things like learning about myself, like I didn't have that curiosity. But 2020 was my first year into college, so that's when I took the ancestry test. And you know, I was able to learn a bit more about my roots and things. But growing up, the theme of my life has always been people trying to guess like what ethnicity I have, which I don't know if that has happened to you, but like people would be like, are you Filipino? Are you Polynesian? Like I've gotten Wasian before. Like
no, people do guess a lot. Yeah, for me too. Most of the things I've gotten were like Korean and Chinese. And like I used to take that like going into Asian beauty standards too. Like you're very much like I feel like with Southeast Asians, there's a lot of like, you know, whitewashing. Like you want to be paler, you want to have like not like very like pronounced features, you know? And so I feel like whenever like someone's like, oh my God, are you Korean? Are you Japanese? I was like, oh my God, no, I'm not. I'm Viet. Like I would like take that with pride. Before like, you know, like when I was younger, like I would take that so much with pride. I was like, oh yeah, like I don't like, you know, look Viet. Like I don't want to look Viet because of these Asian beauty standards, you know?
Yeah. And I'm still learning about what Asian beauty standards there are, and like I think a big theme in my life is just learning about who I am and my Asian identity.
It is,
but like
it's a journey.
It really is. Yeah. And like Asian beauty standards are no joke for sure. And I feel like, you know, there's like for us too, there's almost a different dynamic to where there's Asian beauty standards, but there's also like European white beauty standards that we have to adhere to. So it's like a double whammy against us.
Yeah, I feel like there's also like just a lot of common themes too. I feel like with a lot of like Asian, it's like I think this like the whole nutrition thing again. It's like so big on like fitting into these different body types. Like even though they may like look different from like Asian beauty standards to like American, European beauty standards and stuff. But I feel like, I don't know, from like my perspective, I feel like a lot of like even like my family, my parents, I feel like adopted a lot of like the American Europeanized like body standards. Like, oh, like make sure like you drink a lot of milk so you grow tall and like pretty and stuff. Or like my dad would be like, oh, like, this is obviously complete fake because I just didn't like tomatoes when I was younger, okay? I like tomatoes now. But he's like, oh, if you eat tomatoes, it'll make your lips really red and pretty. And I'm just like, okay. He was like, so yeah. So funny. Yeah, I just didn't like tomatoes when I was a kid, but yeah. Anyways, I feel like
that's one way, I guess.
And like having like kind of like that tall like nose bridge, you know, like bigger eyes. Like my mom likes to use like double eyelid tape and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, like, you know, like there's definitely a lot of like Western standards I feel like seeping into like all the other standards as well.
Yeah, and I don't know, growing up, my sister is also adopted, but she has more of like the traditional Chinese look, if that makes sense. Like, and so I would get compared a lot to her even too. Like,
even though you guys aren't even blood related.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, we're not even blood related, but you know, I have the double eyelids and I have bigger eyes and like I don't have as pronounced of cheekbones and a facial structure, and I'm not like my sister's like super skinny and I'm not that super skinny. Like I have like different features of my body that would be considered bigger to like, depending who you ask, like, and what ethnicity.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just tough all around.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like for me, I was like, people praised me for being skinny, but they also were like, kind of like, why are you skinny? Like that's like unhealthy skinny, you know? But I was still a kid. I was still growing. I ate what I wanted to eat when I was hungry and stuff. And so it's like, oh, you should eat more and like you should, you know, like, you know, gain some weight, you know, like you're so skinny, but then getting also praised for being skinny. It was like really weird, and like it made me struggle a lot with like am I healthy or am I unhealthy type of thing. Even though like the weight I was at, like I was like perfectly fine, you know, like because I was always underweight growing up. And I was just like, okay, that's just who I am. I'm just underweight, and that's fine, you know? It's like I don't have any other health issues that because I'm underweight, and so it's not really much of a concern, you know? Like I'm still like nutritionally like fine.
I think that it also is interesting about how Asian like people are represented in media too.
Oh,
like,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I will admit that I didn't grow up watching a lot of like Asian media, so like I'm just now getting into things like anime and all the Asian things, but a lot of like Asian celebrities are like, at least for women, I can speak to women, are just very thin and very like pretty and things like that. I don't know if you might know more like Asian icons than I do.
Yeah,
but
I think especially in like Asian media, not necessarily like Asian American media.
Yeah.
I feel like in Asian media, like there's a lot of like I said, whitewashing. Like people will really put like whitewashing filters on them, so they look like so pale. Like they're like and there's like a lot of like different. And they're also like all really skinny too. Like you don't see a lot of like bigger women. In like Asian media, like they like are never shown at all. Like for example, with like K-pop and stuff, like you never see like any like bigger like idols and stuff. And so like even though like people will like have amazing voices, amazing talent, it's all about like the look. Yeah, it's not about your talent, it's about the look, which I feel like is a little different in America, where it's like now where it's like more of a shift towards like more like recognizing talent rather than just looks. I feel like there's more of a shift towards that. And like more like substantive content rather than just your attractiveness, just a physical attractiveness.
Yeah, and you said K-pop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Korean barbecue recently, and they have like, I mean, I don't know if it was specific to this restaurant, but they had TVs set up, and it was just playing a bunch of like music videos.
Oh yeah,
and
all of them do that.
All female artists, all super skinny, all overly sexualized, like
100%.
to the max.
They're so like like literally like I saw like this little like thing on like one of the social medias, I don't remember which one, but it was like kind of like the progression of like how their their skirts are getting shorter because they wear safety shorts underneath their skirts, but it's getting so much shorter now that you literally just plainly see the safety shorts. Like it's getting so bad. Like everyone's like so over sexualized, and now like idols are a lot younger too. Like they're under 18, and so it's like, okay, well, isn't that like better? You know, let's get into like all that stuff. Like, why are you over sexualizing children?
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, it plays into like, I just learned about this too, and we talked about it, and hopefully it's not too inappropriate, but like Asians being fetishized all the time, which is just, I don't know. I'm still like learning about it, I guess, in the sense of like, I just learned that it was a thing and that there's a term for it and things like that, but it's really just making me realize, like, I don't know, being Asian is kind of hard.
I think there's definitely like a lot of different things that we experience that are like very similar to other cultures, but also like, you know, also unique to our culture as well. With like Asian fetishization, I think that's also like a big part in like how like Asians were perceived in the media here, like in the beginning.
Yeah.
And a lot of like over sexualization and like kind of like being like exotic, you know, and like displaying like blatant like really Asian, like people wearing like kipaos and like kimonos and stuff, and like having chopsticks in your hair and being like, oh yeah, like this is like an appropriate costume for people to dress up in, or like this is like an appropriate like representation in like media where like you're not even like having that like ethnic background, you know. So I think there's like a lot of that influence, like a lot of Asian fetishization, you know. And like the whole like green card concept too, like, oh, getting your green card and like, you know, like, oh, like, do you need a green card? Like, I'll like marry you and like bring you here, you know, like to like have a better life and all that stuff. It's like a lot of that too. It's like, yeah.
I have actually like the whole, when you said like, oh, you're exotic, like that is so, it gives me the ick. And
yeah,
it's
it should give you the ick.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that is such a common thing that I feel like we hear all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not even just Asian. It's literally anyone who's not white.
Yeah.
Any person who's like...
They're like, you're exotic.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and it's just, oh, it gives me the ick.
As it should give you the ick. It should make you run.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about what else gives you the ick.
gives me the ick? Oh, there's a lot of things that give me the ick.
Maybe we could keep it to like, I don't know, in regards to like stuff that we experience.
I mean, the whole like where you're from thing too. I think that's like a big thing.
Yeah.
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 Just be like, what is your ethnicity? Like, don't even say where you're from. Like, that's not even geographically like correct, you know? Because I wasn't born in Vietnam. Like, that's my like identifying ethnicity, you know? So if you're gonna ask me, just be like, what's your ethnicity, you know? Like,
just be straight to the point.
Exactly.
No sugarcoating.
Yeah.
Like, just do that. It was interesting because I don't know if this is an ick, but I'm just gonna share. But there's this one person, I was at my other job, and there was this one person who like sees me, and he starts speaking Spanish to me, which is so
I remember you telling me this story.
This is so weird because it's like I have gotten like people thinking that I looked Mexican, which is just weird and interesting. But he started speaking Spanish to me, and I think he could like process and like get registered that like he didn't understand me, because I was like, bro, what the hell are you saying to me? And then he was like, oh, sorry, I thought you were Latina, but now that I'm looking at you, you're definitely like Asian. And I was like,
you had to like take that look back.
You didn't, that was so unnecessary.
Yeah.
You could have just been like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that would come off kind of strong, just like strolling into work and be like, hey, what ethnicity are you?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know,
like
that whole interaction.
I feel like a lot of people too like feel like kind of just start speaking languages. I feel like that can happen a lot. But I think just like, oh, like, can you speak Spanish? Like, just like, there's like guiding, like literally just ask a question and everything will be okay, you know? And you just say like no or yes, and then you can continue on, you know? I think people just like, just need to ask questions. They just need to be like more like, you know, upfront with things. I feel like tiptoeing too, like creates a lot of like miscommunication.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I think that having conversations and asking questions is really the route to go to learn more about things that you don't know.
Exactly.
And like, I would be fine if you just asked me a question, but when you just automatically assume that I speak Spanish, I'm like,
assumption.
That is so odd of you to do. Like, you just, I would never just go up to someone and start speaking like a different language if they didn't, like if I wasn't for sure.
Yeah, because like I feel like it comes with the conversation. Be like, oh my God, you're Viet, I'm Viet, and then be like, oh, like, and then go all, and then, you know, especially if you don't know the person. Like, I feel like if you like know them around, like they're in your community, like you know this person, and like they're like, you know, what they can speak and stuff in different languages they can speak, then I feel like that's okay. But if you blatantly don't know this person, you've never seen them in life, you don't know who they are, you know, like, I mean, like not 100%. Even like all like Latinas and stuff can like speak Spanish either. Like, you know, like it's a very big assumption. You know? Yeah.
I don't think you should just like, like how you just mentioned, like Latinas, not all of them speak Spanish. And like,
I mean,
that's
how a lot of them do, but you know, like some don't.
Yeah. And that's how I feel sometimes too, because like I am primarily Chinese, according to the ancestry test.
What was your ancestry test result?
So it was interesting. It was actually like, I think like 99% Chinese at first, but it updated. So it updates as they get new data, which I thought was really interesting. So like now it's like still primarily Chinese, but there's also, I think I'm part Viet.
Really?
Yeah, which, I mean, like very small part. So not a lot, and then there's also Dai, which is D-A-I.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what that one is either. So it updates though, which is really interesting. So
yeah, my brother took an ancestry test too, and like it's my brother, so we have like the same results. You know?
Well, you should.
Yeah, we should have the same results. But yeah, because both my grandfathers on both my mom and dad's side, they're both Chinese, so I knew I was like, you know, like I always just say like, oh, I'm half Chinese. But then my brother took the ancestry test, and I'm like 33, like around like 33%, 36% Chinese, and then the rest Viet.
Oh, so you're primarily Viet.
I'm primarily Viet now. I can say I'm primarily Viet. But I mean, like culturally, I identify as Viet. You know,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, that's the thing. Like I don't know. It's weird because I am a transracial adoptee. So like my adoptive father is white and like my mom is Chinese. So it's like I grew up with both experiences and just like where I grew up. But I feel like there is a big assumption, like, I don't know. There's like two coinciding things, like I look like a minority, I look different, so I get treated different. But then also like being one of the only minorities, it's like they see me as one of them, like one of the white people.
I see.
And so like
so
they
it's like
hold me to the same
again.
Yeah, like they hold me to the same standard and things. But even in my household, it was kind of interesting because my mom's mom, so my popo, she would oftentimes be like, "Oh, you're so Americanized," or "You're so like you're acting like white," I guess. Yeah. But it's like that's who I grew up around. And
that
like,
was the culture you literally grew up around. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't speak Cantonese, which is what my family speaks. By family, I mean my mom, because my mom isn't even that fluent, but you know, she knows more than I do. Like I know nothing in Cantonese basically. So there's also that like struggling dynamic where I want to be more in tune with who I am and like my ethnicity.
I see. Do you like see like, were you able to like learn a lot from your mom at all about like your culture and your, you know, like being Chinese and like all that stuff? Or like did she also like more like assimilate into like the white culture?
I think she assimilated, which like, I don't know, assimilation is kind of inevitable, like in any situation, like even if it's just a little bit. So I think she definitely assimilated in a lot of ways. And I even asked her this recently. I was like, Mom, were you ever like really intentional about like the materials I had growing up? Materials sounds weird. Like education? The books, education, like things like that, like embedding it into my culture. And, you know, I would have some books about it and things like that. And, you know, when I was like 1, I think she spoke Cantonese to me briefly, so I knew some phrases, like not a ton. But I think she's tried to do that, but slowly as I entered like primary school and things like that, it's hard to like keep up with that, especially when it's not really that prevalent in like growing up.
In the American education system,
Yeah, which I don't know if like your experience was different because you like grew up in a more diverse town. Like, I don't know if you went to an elementary school that was maybe like more diverse and had more like cultural lessons and things like that, but
no. Like I remember this, like I feel like within like my family, yes, I was exposed to a lot of culture, but within like the American education system, like I remember, I think it was 3rd grade, and I don't know if you guys know this book, but it's called Tiki Tiki Tembo.
I don't know.
It's like
sounds familiar.
It's literally about like this like it's like a Chinese book, like a Chinese book about like a story like about Chinese culture and stuff like that about this boy, and it's literally written by a white person, and their name is
weird.
The boy's name is Tiki Tiki Tembo Nosa Rembo, very very something something something. I don't remember. It was a really long name, but then like the author came out and was just like, yeah, I just heard what my like neighbor was speaking, and like that's what I like wrote the book about, you know.
Oh
like
my
that's,
gosh!
And I'm just like, and we literally did a play on that in 3rd grade on that book. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but my family-wise, like I was like really into like the culture aspect, I think. With like, because my parents made me go to Viet school and stuff. And since like we are Buddhist and stuff, and we're not like part of like the Catholic Church, because a lot of times in Vietnamese communities, Viet school is built into like the Catholic Church and stuff.
Interesting.
So we had like a different like we went to PCC, so Portland Community College, and we like rented out like the space and stuff, and that's where we would hold like Vietnamese school and stuff. And so like my parents like made me go and like learn and stuff, but it's like I also didn't learn because I would use Google Translate, and also my mom would help me cheat on my homework and stuff. But I also did grow up like learning to speak Vietnamese because both my grandparents they don't speak any English really, and being like the youngest, I feel like I was also not taught a lot of Vietnamese compared to my brothers, because my brother would speak English to me instead of like just being fully immersed in Vietnamese. And so, but I did still like learn a lot of like my language through my family rather than Viet school. But Viet school would have taught me more about reading and writing, which I don't can't really do.
But
it was nice to be like really involved in that culture, and I feel like nowadays like that has been like a lot of lost in myself, especially with like, you know, getting older and like thinking about like kind of the future and like what do I want to teach my children if I ever have children, you know, and wanting to keep like teaching them like my language if they're like, you know, like all that stuff. And I was like telling my parents, because when we do this thing called like basically kind of like this thing for like the ancestors, and we like kind of like do like this whole like feast thing. We cook it for the ancestors and we leave it out and stuff for a couple days for them to like eat and like feast and stuff like that. And they're like, and I asked them like, oh, like, are you ever gonna teach us how to do that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, it just feels really sad to like see like my parents like losing their culture in that way and like not having it being passed down, you know? Because I feel like when you're younger, growing up, like you being forced to go to like the temple and like doing these different things, like you're like, oh, I don't want to be here. This is so boring. Like blah blah blah. Like I don't want to learn about this stuff. But like now it's like, well, now I want to learn it, but my parents don't want to teach it anymore, you know?
I know. I think that there's like, as you grow up, there's like an understanding more of who you are, and so you feel like there's more of a responsibility. Like when you brought up kids, like I think about that a lot. Like if I were to ever have kids, like how is my sort of journey going to be reflected onto them? What am I going to be intentional about? What should I learn now about? Like, because I mean, I think you can learn anything at any age. Like, there's no reason that's stopping us right now from learning like any language that we want to.
Yeah, like I could definitely like take the initiative and like learn more, but I think it's just like because it's like a familial, like a family thing, it's like you kind of expect it from them to teach you and like passing down like the traditions, you know?
Yeah, and like when you say like when you were younger and like how we're forced into doing things like that. Like, I don't know, I feel like there's different elements, like one being a kid, and you know, kids are weird.
Yeah, you just want to play. You don't want to sit there like the whole time and just hear people talk to you. You know?
Yeah. I think that it gets lost in translation how important it is to keep some of these like traditions and things, and I almost feel like we learn it too late. Because now I'm thinking like I should start learning like Cantonese now, so then I can like, I don't know.
It's also like a lot harder to like learn it when you're older.
Exactly.
Because when you're a kid, you just like absorb things like a sponge, you know? You just take everything, which is why like I feel like my Viet is so scuffed now, like compared, and so it's just like when you start to lose that when you get older, you know, lose like, you know, the memory of like how do I do these things, and as like if you don't keep up with it, you're just gonna lose it. You know? And when you're older, like you have more of like adulting things you need to do rather than when you're your child, like you don't have to like worry about like work, school, or social life, you know, like managing all these different aspects and like kind of incorporating that in when you're not familiar with it, or if like you're trying to learn something new. It's so hard unless you're like fully immersive into like that culture, fully immersed into different things, you know, which is why people are like, oh, if you want to learn how to speak that language, go to that country, you know, and like fully immerse yourself because that's the best way to learn. Yeah, because you're forcing yourself to do that, but it's like, it's hard.
That is something that I do wish my like parents, and I can't fault them for this because it's like, I don't know, traveling costs money, but I do wish that I was able to like visit my birth country at least once, and there's nothing stopping me from doing it now. Actually, there's a lot stopping me from doing it now, but like I would like that opportunity to like, I don't know, see where I was born.
Do you know, like, specifically, like, what area you're from?
Yeah, I mean, the adoption agency that I was from is Dien Bai, but I think I was born in Guangzhou, and I'm not pronouncing that right, but that's okay. Also, I just want to say, that book that you said that you grew up with, where it was written by a white person, I don't know why this is reminding me of it, but it reminds me of when Kim Kardashian wanted to launch Skims, which is now Skims, if you're familiar with that brand.
Yes, I know Skims.
But
I watched some Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
I have mixed feelings about that. But anyways, she originally wanted to name Skims Kimono. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I did not know that. She literally was
about to launch it as Kimono because it had Kim in it. And Skims has the Kim kind of, but like she wanted to name it Kimono until someone like wrote her a letter basically being like, this is what a kimono is. It's like...
Yeah.
a tradition, and it would be kind of offensive if you named your brand
kind
kimono.
Of is very offensive. It's very offensive.
Yeah, and luckily she was receptive to that, but it is.
But the fact that someone else had to point that out for her.
No, I know.
Someone else had to educate her. She couldn't go through that thought process herself of like a kimono is like a traditional Japanese garment and thinking like, oh yeah, it has kim in it. Let me take it because it has my name in it.
I'm like, let me take it and run with it. And I think that's what I'm thinking about. Like when I think of like, I mean, kimono, she might have just been ignorant. Like she might have just
she was probably 100% ignorant.
Yeah, and
if
like I know. Yeah. So it's just like it just reminds me of how it's like take it and run with it a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you know, we've been sharing a lot of negatives
about
our experience. Maybe we should finish off the episode with talking about what we love about being ourselves.
I think that's just it. You know, like being yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's
just, wow, that was very profound of you.
That's literally just the whole message. It's just like be yourself, you know? And I think that a lot of people are always trying to like categorize yourself and like others into like what dynamics do you fit, what things, like who, like literally like questioning like every single thing about you, but just rather than just like normalizing your own body being what it is and like who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was very profound of you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Kailey. The book taught me something.
I know. Yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to know myself. And I know I've said that like a ton on this episode, but I've just like part of the journey of growing up in adulthood is learning about yourself. And I've really enjoyed doing that and embracing like not only who I am like ethnically, but like what my interests are as a person. And you know, I would be lying though if I didn't say every time I ate really good food that was Asian food, I would be like, I love being Asian. Like do you ever get that way? I'm like, wow, it's great being Asian.
No, that's what I think about too. Like I could never move to like a European country, you know, and be like, have no like ethnic food.
No, straight up, I think about that. I'm like, I'll be eating dim sum, and I'm like, God damn, I love being Chinese. I'll just say things like that, and I don't know, that might be inappropriate to say, but you know,
you're regaining a piece of yourself back.
Yeah. I'm being at home with myself.
Yeah.
But
exactly. Be at home with yourself. Ending message. Be at home with yourself.
Be at home with yourself for those viewers at home. Yeah. Well, are there any finishing thoughts?
Yeah, I think that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Still We Persist, first episode. You got the duo here.
Yeah.
Kylie and I. But
Kylie and Jada.
Yes, I had a lot of fun talking. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be coming soon. But yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.